I heard the full conversation through the bathroom door. Mark and his mother, talking about me like I was a chess piece they were moving around a board. He laughed about my desperation to marry into their family. His mother said I was useful but replaceable. My face went numb. My body wouldn't move. I should have walked away right then, but I kept listening. That's when I heard something that made my knees buckle. She doesn't even know we froze her out of the business account last month. His mother's voice was smug and satisfied. Poor thing still thinks she's going to be a partner in your firm after the wedding. They both laughed. I stood there in my wedding gown feeling like the ground had opened beneath me. This was the night before our wedding. The rehearsal dinner was in 2 hours. I retreated quietly down the hallway, avoiding being seen. My hands shook as I deleted the selfie I'd just taken in my wedding gown, the one where I looked happy and excited. My thoughts were spiraling out of control. I opened my phone and without really understanding why, I started recording a video. Just instinct. Just some deep part of me that knew I'd need this later. I whispered into the camera, my voice barely audible, "This is for me. This is so I remember. So I never doubt what I heard tonight." I recorded for 30 seconds, then saved it to my private cloud. Mark called my name from downstairs. I took 3 deep breaths, fixed my face into a smile, and walked down to join him like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I need to go back to the beginning. To the moment Mark proposed. It seemed so perfect at the time. Sunset on a beach, a ring that sparkled in the fading light, words about forever and partnership. I cried happy tears. I said yes without hesitation. But years later, after we were engaged, I'd learned something that should have ended things right then. That ring was originally bought for someone else. His ex-girlfriend, the one before me. He'd proposed with a backup plan, with jewelry meant for another woman's finger. When I found out by accident through an old receipt, Mark laughed it off. Why does it matter? I chose you in the end. But it mattered. It mattered because it meant I was never his first choice. I was just the one who said yes when the first option didn't work out. The first time I met his family should have been another warning sign. His mother and sister looked me up and down like I was an item being inspected for defects. They called me sweet in a way that made me feel stupid and naive. They made subtle digs at my job as an event coordinator, implying it wasn't a real career. They asked pointed questions about my family background and seemed disappointed that I didn't come from money. At one point, Mark's mother pulled him aside in the hallway. I heard her voice clearly. "Are you sure she can handle our world? She seems simple." Mark had laughed uncomfortably but didn't defend me. That night in the car, I asked if his family liked me. "They'll warm up," he said. "Just give them time." I gave them 2 years. They never warmed up. 6 months before the wedding, I found something on Mark's laptop. An old message thread that wasn't so old after all. Flirty messages with a woman named Alexis. Recent ones. Messages about meeting up, about missing each other, about how complicated his situation was. My hands shook as I read. When I confronted him, Mark's face went pale for just a second before smoothing into an expression of patient annoyance. "It's harmless," he said. "We're just friends. You're overreacting." He grabbed his phone and deleted the entire conversation right in front of me, like that somehow proved his innocence. I cried. He hugged me and said, "It's you I'm marrying. Doesn't that tell you everything?" I stayed. I convinced myself it was just cold feet, just old connections he hadn't properly severed. I was wrong. But I didn't know that yet. The prenup signing happened 2 months before the wedding. I remember my hands shaking as I held the pen. Mark's entire family was there, watching me like I was taking a test I might fail. His mother pushed the document across the table with a tight smile. "It's just a formality," Mark said, squeezing my shoulder. "Something our lawyer insists on. Standard stuff." I asked if I should have my own lawyer review it. The room went cold. Mark's father said that would show a lack of trust, that it would be insulting to their family. I was overwhelmed and intimidated. So I signed it without fully reading it, without understanding what I was agreeing to. I saved a scanned copy to my phone, thinking I'd review it later. I never did. Not until the night I heard that conversation through the bathroom door. After overhearing Mark and his mother, I pulled up that prenup on my phone and actually read it. Every word. Every clause. What I found made me feel sick. The document stated that if I divorced Mark before 5 years of marriage, or if we had a child within the first 5 years, I would get nothing in the settlement. Not just nothing from his family money, but I would actually lose rights to property we'd acquired together. The business account he'd promised to make me a partner in? Completely his. The condo we'd bought together with my inheritance as the down payment? His name only on the deed, I realized now. They hadn't just protected his assets. They'd actively structured everything to trap me. To make leaving impossible without losing everything I'd invested in this relationship. I sat on the bathroom floor breathing slowly. They're trying to trap me, I whispered. In every way. I called my college friend Zara late that night. She was a divorce attorney now, successful and sharp. I didn't explain much, just said quietly, I need to understand what happens if I back out of my wedding now. Like, the day before. There was a long pause. Are you okay? She asked. I said I was fine, just needed information. Zara was professional. She explained that most wedding vendors wouldn't refund at this point, but that any contracts in my name only could be cancelled. Then she said something interesting. If there's any fraud involved in the prenup or financial arrangements, that changes things significantly. Fraud can void contracts and create liability. I made careful notes. I didn't tell her what I'd overheard. Not yet. But her words gave me the beginning of a plan. A way to not just escape, but to make them pay for trying to trap me. I checked my cloud storage that night and found something I'd forgotten about. For months, I'd been recording conversations with Mark. Not constantly, just when things felt off. When I was being gaslit and needed to prove to myself later that I wasn't crazy or remembering wrong. There was more than I'd realized. Mark mocking my career to his friends, saying I was playing at being a real professional. His mother calling me a glorified party planner at a family dinner. Him telling his sister I was lucky to marry up and that I should be more grateful. Every file was date-stamped and backed up. All potentially admissible if things got legal. I sat in bed listening to my own voice on those recordings, hearing myself try to defend my worth while Mark and his family tore me down. I wasn't that person anymore. Not after tonight. The final dress fitting happened the next morning. I attended like nothing was wrong, smiling at the seamstress while she pinned the hem. You look like you're about to cry, she said kindly. Bride nerves? I forced a bigger smile. Just overwhelmed with happiness, I lied. She believed me. Everyone did. I was good at pretending everything was fine. I'd had 2 years of practice with Mark's family. At home that afternoon, I screamed into my pillow until my throat hurt. Then I opened my laptop and started planning. Not a wedding. An exit strategy. A way to burn down everything they'd built on my back. I made lists, checked accounts, reviewed contracts. Mark came home and found me at the computer. Wedding stuff? He asked, kissing my head. Yeah, I said. Just finalizing some details. I booked a hotel room across town under a fake name. Paid cash. I started moving essential items there quietly, important documents, jewelry, clothes, my grandmother's photo albums. Things Mark might hold hostage if I tried to leave after the wedding. I sent a fake email to the florist asking to delay delivery by 1 day, claiming a venue issue. Then I started discreetly contacting vendors whose contracts were in my name only. The photographer, the makeup artist, the DJ. I requested cancellations and refunds under various pretenses. Some agreed immediately. Others required more convincing. But I was an event coordinator. I knew how to navigate vendor relationships and contracts. I knew exactly which pressure points to use. Mark noticed none of it. He was too busy with his own preparations and celebrating with his groomsmen. He had no idea what was coming. I wrote a letter to Mark explaining everything. How I'd overheard the conversation. How I'd discovered the prenup trap. How I'd realized our entire relationship was built on manipulation and contempt. I poured everything into that letter, every hurt and betrayal and moment of disrespect. Then I recorded myself reading it out loud on video. My voice was steady and cold. I wanted to love you forever, I said to the camera. But you loved power more than me. You loved control more than partnership. And I refused to spend my life being useful but replaceable. When I finished reading, I shredded the physical letter into tiny pieces. I never intended to send it. The video was for me, proof that I tried to articulate my pain before I acted. Evidence that this wasn't impulsive or emotional. This was calculated and justified. One of Mark's groomsmen had a girlfriend named Tessa who'd always been friendly to me. She sent me a DM on social media 2 days before the wedding. I don't know if I should tell you this, she wrote, but Mark told the guys at the bachelor party that you don't know your place, and that you think you're going to be involved in business decisions. He laughed about you not having access to their future finances. He said you'd figure it out eventually, but by then you'd be too invested to leave. She included a screenshot of a group text where Mark had said exactly that. I saved everything. Another piece of evidence. Another nail in the coffin he was building for himself. I thanked Tessa and asked her not to mention our conversation to anyone. She promised she wouldn't. You deserve better, she added. I was starting to believe that might be true. I visited my bank alone and rented a safe deposit box. Inside, I placed copies of everything. The prenup with notes about clauses I'd never agreed to, audio files burned onto CDs, screenshots of text messages, a flash drive with all the recorded phone calls, and copies of financial documents showing how Mark had frozen me out of accounts without telling me. I also included a written timeline of every lie, every manipulation, every moment of gaslighting over our 2-year relationship. If Mark and his family tried to bury me legally or financially after this, I'd have evidence they couldn't touch or destroy. If they try to bury me, I whispered to myself as I locked the box, I'll dig them up first. The banker who helped me looked concerned. Big secret, he joked. Insurance, I replied. Just insurance. I reached out to Mark's ex-fiancé. The woman the ring was originally meant for. Her name was Simone and she'd moved across the country after their breakup. I found her through mutual friends and sent a careful message explaining who I was and asking if she'd be willing to talk. To my surprise, she called me within an hour. I'd been waiting for someone to reach out, she said. I always wondered if he'd change. She sent me a voice memo detailing their relationship. How Mark had cheated on her repeatedly. How his family had called her not good enough despite her prestigious job and education. How Mark had once referred to me specifically, as an investment he was considering. She still had text messages proving all of it. He has a pattern, Simone said. And you're not crazy for seeing it. I saved everything she sent. His pattern was now documented across multiple women. The rehearsal dinner arrived. I showed up looking stunning in a cream dress that cost more than I should have spent. My makeup was flawless. My smile was glass bright and sharp. All eyes turned to me when I walked in. Mark's mother's expression flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Mark came over and kissed my cheek. You're glowing, he whispered. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Thanks, I said sweetly. Tomorrow's a big day. He squeezed my hand, completely oblivious. His family greeted me with their usual fake warmth. I played along perfectly. I'd become an expert at performing for them. They had no idea I was holding a grenade with the pin already pulled. They didn't know the explosion was scheduled for tomorrow morning. During dinner, Mark's father asked me to say a few words. A toast to the happy couple. I stood up with my wine glass, and the room quieted. I started with traditional sentiments about love and partnership. People smiled and nodded. Then I shifted slightly. To honesty, I said, my voice clear. To love that's real, not convenient. And to knowing your worth. May we all find someone who sees us not as a convenience or an investment, but as a genuine choice. I raised my glass. Everyone clapped, though a few faces looked confused. Mark's smile was uncertain. His mother was frowning slightly. I sat down and took a long sip of wine. The message was too subtle for most people to catch. But Mark's mother heard it. I could tell by how her eyes narrowed, studying me like I'd just revealed something dangerous. That night, I executed the final phase. I sent cancellation emails to every remaining vendor whose contract was in my name. The caterer received notice of a family emergency requiring postponement. The DJ got a message about a venue change. The makeup artist was told I'd decided to do my own makeup after all. One by one, confirmations came back. Services cancelled. Partial refunds processed. By midnight, the wedding was dismantled from the inside. Mark's family had paid for the venue and some decorations, things I couldn't cancel. But everything else, all the personal touches and essential services, were gone. In the morning, they'd scramble to figure out what happened. By then, I'd be unreachable. I packed my final bag, checked out of Mark's condo, and drove to my hotel room. I left my key on the kitchen counter. No note. No explanation. Just absence where I used to be. At 6 in the morning, an email hit Mark's inbox. I knew because I'd scheduled it to send at exactly that time. The subject line read, "Play me at the altar." Inside was a link to a private video I'd uploaded. In the video, I sat calmly at a desk, dressed casually, my hair down. I looked directly at the camera and spoke for 7 minutes. I outlined everything: the overheard conversation, the prenup trap, the frozen accounts, the pattern of manipulation, the lies about the ring. I presented evidence methodically. Screenshots appeared on screen as I referenced them. Audio clips played at key moments. "This is what you lost," I said at the end. "Not a convenient wife. Not a useful accessory. You lost someone who would have loved you genuinely if you'd ever bothered to see me as an equal. I hope it was worth it." The video ended. I'd sent copies to Mark, his parents, and his sister. By 7 in the morning, my phone started exploding with calls. I'd turned it off hours earlier. Mark's father was the first to understand the full scope of what had happened. He discovered that the prenup contained fraudulent elements, clauses about business accounts and property that didn't match the actual ownership documents. He found evidence that Mark had forged my signature on several financial forms. His reputation in their business community meant everything. Having a fraud scandal attached to his family could destroy years of carefully built connections. He froze Mark's trust fund accounts immediately and hired lawyers to contain the damage. Meanwhile, Zara, my attorney friend, filed a formal complaint about the prenup fraud. Mark's reputation began crumbling before the wedding ceremony that would never happen. His mother called me 17 times. I blocked her after reading the voicemail transcripts. She called me vindictive and ungrateful. I sent one text back, "No. I'm just finally done being silent." Then I blocked her number 2. I moved into my new apartment that week. It was small but mine. Completely mine. I'd signed the lease in my name only, paid the deposit with money Mark had never controlled. I opened a new business bank account and transferred my event coordination client list to a new LLC. For the first time in 2 years, I smiled genuinely at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My first client after the wedding disaster was a woman named Kira who was leaving a toxic relationship. She wanted to celebrate her freedom with a party. "I want something beautiful," she said. "Something that proves I'm free." We planned it together, and watching her joy at the event made me realize I'd found my real purpose. Not planning weddings that might be traps, but celebrating genuine new beginnings for women who'd escaped. Mark showed up at my apartment 2 weeks later. Not begging. Not apologizing. Demanding. He pounded on my door hard enough that neighbors looked out their windows. "Open this door, Haley," he shouted. "You can't just destroy everything and walk away." I looked through the peephole and watched him. His face was red with rage. His expensive suit was wrinkled. He looked nothing like the confident man I'd agreed to marry. I had my phone ready to call the police if necessary. But after 5 minutes of yelling, he gave up and left. I watched him walk back to his car, shoulders slumped in defeat. Then I blocked his number and email. That was it. No last words. No closure on his terms. Just the door staying closed, the boundary finally enforced. He never came back. The message was finally clear: I was done. The fallout for Mark was extensive. His father officially disowned him after the fraud investigation confirmed that Mark had forged documents and misrepresented financial information. His credit was destroyed by debts he couldn't pay without trust fund access. His job at his father's firm was terminated when the legal issues became public knowledge. Friends distanced themselves one by one as the true story spread through their social circles. He became a cautionary tale, whispered about at parties as an example of how not to treat a partner. His mother lost significant social standing as well. The matriarch who'd raised such a manipulative son found herself excluded from clubs and boards. The family's reputation for integrity was shattered. I heard these updates through Tessa and other mutual friends. I felt no satisfaction in Mark's downfall, but no guilt either. He'd built this destruction himself. 3 months later, I was invited to be a guest on a podcast about protecting yourself in relationships. The host had heard my story through social media whispers and wanted to discuss red flags and financial awareness. I didn't name Mark or his family specifically, but the message was clear throughout the interview. Know your worth. Read every document. Keep your own money. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. The podcast episode went viral in certain circles. My event business exploded with new clients who'd heard the interview. Women reached out asking for mentorship, sharing their own stories of manipulation and escape. I started a support group that met monthly. My voice, which had been silenced and dismissed for so long, was suddenly strong and clear. My laugh was real again. The life I was building was entirely my own creation. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, I walked through the botanical garden where Mark and I had planned to get married. I went alone, wanting to face the ghost of that future I'd almost accepted. The garden was beautiful in the afternoon light, peaceful and green. I felt no regret looking at the space where I would have stood and made vows to someone who saw me as useful but replaceable. I felt only relief. Freedom. Clarity. I don't regret a thing, I said out loud to no one. I loved him once. But I love myself more now. And if I had to choose between being his wife and being whole, being free, being respected. I smiled and turned to leave the garden, walking toward my car and my actual future. I'd do it again. Every single time. Without hesitation. And I meant it completely.